A woman stands on courthouse steps, her natural hair flowing like a crown of defiance against the Georgia morning sun. Behind her, dozens of supporters mirror her stance, all wearing their authentic selves proudly, their hair a tapestry of textures, colors, and styles that tell stories of heritage and pride. This is Amara Johnson, 34 years old, software engineer, devoted mother, and the woman who changed everything for Black women in workplaces across America. But let me take you back to where it all began, 6 months earlier, in the quiet suburb of Riverside Heights just outside Atlanta. Jasmine's mornings were sacred rituals. In her master bathroom, surrounded by an arsenal of natural hair products that would make any beauty supply store envious, she'd perform the delicate dance passed down through generations of Black women. Coconut oil warmed between her palms, shea butter mixed with leave-in conditioner, and the gentle art of finger-coiling each curl with the precision of a master craftsperson. Her 8-year-old daughter Zara would perch on the bathroom counter, legs swinging, watching her mother's reflection in the oversized mirror. Zara's own hair, a magnificent cloud of tight coils that caught light like spun gold, would be next in line for the same loving attention. "Remember, baby," Jasmine would whisper, sectioning another curl. "Your hair is your crown. Your great-grandmother told me that when I was your age, and her grandmother told her the same thing. Never let anyone tell you to take it off." This wasn't just about beauty routines. This was about identity, heritage, and the unbreakable chain of Black women who had learned to love themselves in a world that often told them they weren't enough. Jasmine's grandmother, Nana Rose, had been a civil rights activist in the 1960s, wearing her afro as a statement of Black pride when it was dangerous to do so. That same spirit of defiance and self-love flowed through Jasmine's veins. At TechFlow Solutions, a gleaming tech company housed in a glass tower in downtown Atlanta, Jasmine was known for two things: her brilliant coding skills and her impossible-to-ignore presence. In a company of 200 employees, she was one of only 3 Black faces, and the only Black woman in the entire engineering department. For 2 years, Jasmine had thrived in this environment. She'd led the development of their flagship customer management system, mentored junior developers, and earned praise from clients for her innovative solutions. Her performance reviews were stellar. Her salary reflected her value to the company. Her natural hair had never been mentioned in any professional context. Until it was. David Peterson had been Jasmine's manager for those 2 years. A 40-something white man from suburban Connecticut, David was what you might call professionally pleasant, the kind of manager who remembered birthdays and asked about weekend plans but never quite looked you in the eye during conversations. He'd always seemed comfortable with Jasmine's presence, or at least, he'd never given her reason to think otherwise. That Tuesday morning in March started like any other. Jasmine had spent extra time on her hair the night before, creating a beautiful twist out that cascaded past her shoulders in perfectly defined spirals. She'd worn her lucky blazer navy blue with gold buttons that her mother had given her for landing the job at TechFlow. She felt confident, powerful, ready to tackle the complex algorithm she'd been perfecting for weeks. But instead of heading to her desk in the bustling open office space, Jasmine was intercepted at the elevator by David Peterson and Carol Stevens from Human Resources. Carol was a thin woman in her 50s who always wore her graying hair in a tight bun and carried herself with the rigid posture of someone perpetually uncomfortable. "Jasmine, we need to talk," David said, his eyes focused somewhere over her left shoulder. "Conference room B is available." The walk to the conference room felt like a funeral procession. Jasmine's mind raced through possibilities. Was there a problem with her latest project? Had a client complained? Was the company downsizing? Never, not once, did she imagine that her hair would be the subject of this meeting. Conference room B was a sterile space with white walls, an oval table that could seat 12, and a view of the Atlanta skyline that usually inspired Jasmine. Today, it felt like a courtroom. Carol opened a manila folder and cleared her throat. "Jasmine, we've received some feedback about your presentation." "My presentation?" Jasmine asked, genuinely confused. "Which one?" "The client demo last week went perfectly. They loved the new features." David shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Not that kind of presentation. Your overall appearance. The words that came next would replay in Jasmine's mind for months. Your hair is unprofessional and distracting to clients. Several people have mentioned that it's a lot. We need you to make it more appropriate for our corporate environment. Jasmine felt the blood drain from her face. The room seemed to tilt slightly, as if the earth had shifted beneath her feet. My hair? She managed to whisper. More conventional. David continued, still avoiding eye contact. You understand. We have standards to maintain. Carol slid a printed copy of the company's appearance policy across the table. Jasmine had signed it 2 years ago without much thought. Standard corporate language about professional appearance and business-appropriate attire. But now, as she read it through new eyes, she saw how subjective, how open to interpretation, how dangerously vague it really was. What exactly are you asking me to do? Jasmine asked, her voice steadier than she felt. We're giving you time to adjust, Carol replied. Take a few days to figure out how to make your hair more suitable for client-facing roles. Jasmine sat in her car in the TechFlow parking garage for 20 minutes after that meeting, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her beautiful hair, the same hair she'd worn for 2 years of exemplary performance, the same hair that had never been an issue during countless successful client meetings, was suddenly a problem. She thought about her white colleague Jennifer, who regularly came to work with unwashed hair and a messy bun and was praised by clients for being authentically creative. She thought about Sarah's beachy waves that she achieved with a $300 curling iron, waves that clients always complimented as effortlessly chic. She thought about Marcus, the only black man in the office, who kept his hair in a low fade that no one had ever called unprofessional. But mostly, she thought about Zara. That evening, Jasmine found herself in the bathroom again, but this time she wasn't preparing her hair, she was staring at it, running her fingers through the curls that suddenly felt foreign, contaminated by other people's judgment. She could hear Zara in her bedroom, singing to herself as she played with her dolls, and she wondered what she would tell her daughter about this day. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that the hair she's been taught to love, the crown she's been told to wear proudly, is somehow wrong? How do you tell your child that the world might ask her to change the very essence of who she is to make other people comfortable? Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. How was your day, sweetheart? She stared at the message for a long time, then put the phone down without responding. How could she explain that her successful career, her professional achievements, her years of hard work could be undermined by the texture of her hair? She thought about her grandmother, Nana Rose, who had passed away 5 years earlier but whose voice still echoed in Jasmine's memory. They want us to be invisible, baby girl. Small. Quiet. Acceptable. But we are not acceptable, we are exceptional. Never forget that. In that moment, standing in her bathroom mirror at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in March, Jasmine Johnson made a decision that would change everything. She wouldn't straighten her hair. She wouldn't hide who she was. She wouldn't make herself smaller to make others comfortable. She would fight. The next morning, Jasmine took extra time with her hair. She deep conditioned it, used her best products, and styled it in a magnificent wash and go that left her curls full, defined, and absolutely stunning. She chose a bright yellow blouse that complemented her skin tone and made her feel powerful. She looked in the mirror one last time and saw not just herself, but generations of black women who had refused to be diminished. When Jasmine walked into TechFlow that Wednesday morning, conversation stopped. Her hair was a statement, a declaration, a beautiful act of defiance that caught the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. David Peterson's face went pale when he saw her. By 9:15 a.m., Jasmine was being called into another meeting. By 10 a.m., she was suspended pending resolution of her appearance violations. By 10:30 a.m., security was escorting her out of the building while her colleagues watched in stunned silence. Maya Rodriguez, Jasmine's closest friend at work, felt sick watching the scene unfold. Maya, a software architect from El Salvador, had witnessed the subtle racism at TechFlow for years, the way ideas from employees of color were dismissed, then praised when repeated by white colleagues. The way performance reviews seemed to find fault with minority employees that somehow never applied to their white counterparts. The way the company's diversity initiatives were all talk and no action. That very evening, Maya was at her laptop, furiously researching employment law, civil rights organizations, and discrimination attorneys. She made a list of potential lawyers, compiled screenshots of TechFlow's public diversity statements, and began documenting every instance of discriminatory behavior she'd witnessed. "This isn't just about you," Maya told Jasmine over coffee the next morning, sliding a folder across the table. "This is about every woman of color who's ever been told she's not professional enough in her natural state. This is about changing the system." Maya's research led them to Jasmine Clark, a civil rights attorney who specialized in workplace discrimination. Jasmine's office was filled with awards, newspaper clippings, and photos of her with various civil rights leaders. She was a woman in her 40s with natural hair styled in elegant locks, and when she heard Jasmine's story, her eyes flashed with recognition and anger. "I've been waiting for a case like this," Jasmine said during their first meeting. "The Crown Act has passed in California, New York, and a few other states, but Georgia isn't one of them yet. We'll have to build our case under Title VII racial discrimination in the workplace." Jasmine explained that proving hair discrimination was challenging because companies often hid behind race-neutral appearance policies. But she was confident that TechFlow's treatment of Jasmine was part of a pattern of discrimination that could be exposed and challenged. "We need to document everything," Jasmine continued. "Every email, every witness, every instance of discriminatory treatment. And we need to find other women who've experienced similar discrimination." As word of Jasmine's case spread through Atlanta's professional networks, something remarkable happened. Other women began coming forward not just from TechFlow, but from companies across the city. The stories were heartbreakingly similar and devastatingly consistent. Keisha Williams, an accountant at a major firm, had been passed over for promotions for 3 years. When she finally straightened her hair, she was promoted within 6 months. "They never said it was about my hair," Keisha explained. "But the message was clear." Nicole Thompson, a marketing executive, had been told that her braids were too ethnic for client meetings and that she should consider more mainstream hairstyles if she wanted to advance her career. Shanice Davis, a bank teller, had been written up for her natural hair being unkempt, even though she spent hours each week maintaining it. When she pointed out that her white colleagues regularly wore their hair in messy buns, she was told that was different. The stories poured in like a dam had burst decades of accumulated pain, frustration, and discrimination that Black women had endured in silence, thinking they were alone in their experiences. But TechFlow wasn't going down without a fight. The company hired Blackstone and Associates, one of Atlanta's most expensive law firms, to handle their defense. Their strategy was predictable but effective: paint Jasmine as a disruptive employee who was looking for a payday, claim their appearance policy was race-neutral and applied equally to all employees, and argue that professional appearance standards were a legitimate business necessity. The legal discovery process was brutal. TechFlow's lawyers requested every email Jasmine had ever sent from her work account, every performance review, every interaction with clients. They deposed her colleagues, asking leading questions designed to find any evidence of poor performance or unprofessional behavior. They portrayed her as someone who was difficult to work with and always looking for conflict. They suggested that her suspension had nothing to do with her hair and everything to do with her attitude problem. The financial pressure was overwhelming. Jasmine was the primary breadwinner for her family. Her savings account was dwindling, and the legal fees were mounting even though Jasmine was working on contingency. She had to explain to Zara why they couldn't go to Disney World as planned, why they had to cancel their cable subscription, why Mommy couldn't buy the new books Zara wanted. Some nights, Jasmine would lie awake wondering if she should have just straightened her hair. Maybe this fight wasn't worth the cost. Maybe she should have chosen her battles more carefully. Maybe she was being selfish, putting her principles above her family's financial security. Then Jasmine found the smoking gun. Hidden in TechFlow's internal communications were emails that revealed the ugly truth behind Jasmine's suspension. David Peterson had written to his supervisor after a client meeting. "We need to address the Jasmine situation. Her hair is becoming a distraction. She needs to look more conventional. Our clients expect a certain aesthetic." When his supervisor asked for clarification, Peterson's response was even more damning. "You know what I mean. We can't have her representing us looking like that." The emails were racist, explicit, and exactly the evidence Jasmine needed to prove discriminatory intent. But TechFlow's legal team immediately went on the attack, claiming the emails were taken out of context and threatening to file countersuit for defamation and breach of confidentiality. They argued that Peterson's comments were about professional presentation and had nothing to do with race. They claimed that any reasonable person would understand that certain hairstyles were inappropriate for corporate environments, regardless of the employee's race. The case began attracting media attention. Local news stations picked up the story, then national outlets. Social media exploded with support using the hashtag #CrownRights. Women across the country shared their own stories of hair discrimination, posting photos of themselves with their natural hair and messages of solidarity. But the attention also brought criticism. Anonymous online comments accused Jasmine of playing the race card and looking for a handout. Some people argued that companies had the right to set appearance standards and that employees should follow them or find work elsewhere. The pressure was mounting on all sides. TechFlow was facing a public relations nightmare as their discriminatory practices were exposed. Several major clients began questioning the company's diversity policies, and recruitment became difficult as talented candidates avoided the company. Just when victory seemed possible, TechFlow played their final card. They filed for an emergency injunction, claiming that the media attention and employee statements were damaging their business and constituted corporate sabotage, organized by Jasmine and her legal team. If the injunction was granted, it would effectively silence all the supporters who had come forward and end the case before it could go to trial. Jasmine would be alone again, facing a powerful corporation with unlimited resources and no witnesses to support her claims. The night before the crucial hearing, Jasmine sat in her living room with Zara, both of them quiet as they braided each other's hair, a ritual they'd shared since Zara was old enough to hold still. "Are you scared, Mommy?" Zara asked, her small fingers gentle as she sectioned her mother's hair. "Yes, baby," Jasmine replied honestly. "I'm terrified. But sometimes being scared means you're doing something important. Like when I was scared to read in front of the class, but I did it anyway." "Exactly like that, sweetheart. Sometimes we have to be brave even when we're scared." The courthouse steps were packed the next morning. What had started as one woman's fight against workplace discrimination had become a movement. Women wore their natural hair proudly, their children held signs reading, "My crown is beautiful," and men stood in solidarity with wives, daughters, and colleagues who had faced similar discrimination. The crowd was diverse Black women who had lived this experience, white allies who recognized the injustice, Latina women who had faced their own hair discrimination, Asian women who understood the pressure to conform to Eurocentric beauty standards. It was a coalition of people who believed that everyone deserved the right to exist authentically in professional spaces. Inside the courthouse, Judge Patricia Williams, herself a Black woman who wore her silver hair in elegant locks, presided over what everyone knew would be a pivotal moment in civil rights history. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity, with overflow crowds watching from adjacent rooms via closed-circuit television. TechFlow's lead attorney, Richard Blackstone himself, argued that appearance policies were legitimate business interests protected by law. He claimed that the media attention proved Jasmine was more interested in fame and financial gain than actual justice, and that her case was a frivolous attempt to undermine legitimate corporate authority. But Jasmine Clark's response was devastating and methodical. She presented the discriminatory emails, testimony from dozens of TechFlow employees, documentation of the company's pattern of racial bias, and expert testimony about the racist history of hair discrimination against Black women. "This isn't about one woman's hair," Jasmine declared in her closing argument, her voice ringing through the packed courtroom. This is about whether black women have the right to exist authentically in professional spaces. This is about whether natural black hair is inherently unprofessional, or whether that belief is itself a racist construct designed to exclude and diminish black women in the workplace. When Jasmine took the stand, the courtroom was completely silent. Her voice was steady and strong as she spoke about her experience, but also about the broader implications of her case. "I'm not asking for special treatment," she said, looking directly at Judge Williams. "I'm asking for the same right every other woman in that office has the right to wear my natural hair without being told I'm not professional enough, not polished enough, not good enough. I'm asking for the right to teach my daughter that she doesn't have to change who she is to succeed in this world." Judge Williams' decision was swift, comprehensive, and unequivocal. Her voice carried the weight of centuries of injustice as she delivered her ruling. The court finds that TechFlow Solutions engaged in discriminatory practices based on racial bias, violating Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. The company's treatment of Ms. Johnson's natural hair as inherently unprofessional is rooted in racist stereotypes and has no legitimate business justification. She continued, "Natural black hair is not unprofessional, disruptive, or inappropriate for any workplace. Policies that treat it as such are discriminatory and will not be tolerated in this jurisdiction." The crowd outside erupted in celebration as news of the victory spread. Jasmine had won more than her individual case. She had won a victory for every black woman who had ever been told to hide who she was, to make herself smaller, to conform to standards that were never applied equally. TechFlow was ordered to reinstate Jasmine with full back pay and benefits, revise their appearance policies to explicitly protect natural hair, conduct comprehensive diversity training for all managers, and pay substantial damages for the discrimination and emotional distress they had caused. David Peterson quietly resigned rather than face the mandatory sensitivity training and public scrutiny his emails had generated. But the real change was bigger than one manager or one company. Within weeks of the ruling, companies across Georgia were revising their appearance policies. The state legislature fast-tracked the Georgia Crown Act, which passed with bipartisan support and was signed into law just 3 months after Jasmine's victory. 6 months later, Jasmine returned to TechFlow not as the same software engineer, but as the company's new director of diversity and inclusion, leading a comprehensive transformation of the company's culture and practices. Her first hire was Maya Rodriguez as her deputy director. Together, they implemented mentorship programs for employees of color, revised recruitment practices to ensure diverse candidate pools, and created safe spaces for employees to report discrimination without fear of retaliation. But for Jasmine, the most important victory was smaller and more personal. Every morning, as she and Zara perform their sacred hair ritual, Jasmine knows she's given her daughter something precious: the knowledge that she never has to hide who she is, that her natural beauty is not just acceptable but powerful. Zara walks into school every day with her head held high, her natural hair a crown of confidence, telling anyone who will listen about how her mommy changed the world. And when other little girls compliment her hair, Zara smiles and says what her mother taught her. "Thank you. It's my crown." Today, as Jasmine leads meetings at TechFlow with her beautiful natural hair flowing freely around her shoulders, she often thinks about her grandmother, Nana Rose, and wonders what she would think of her granddaughter's victory. She believes Nana Rose would be proud not just of the legal victory, but of the choice to fight, to stand up, to refuse to be diminished. Because Jasmine Johnson didn't just win a lawsuit. She didn't just change a company's policies or help pass a law. She helped change the world, one curl at a time, one conversation at a time, one little girl at a time. This is the story of how one mother's refusal to hide her authentic self sparked a movement that changed laws, challenged prejudices, and reminded the world that natural black hair isn't just professional, it's powerful, it's beautiful, and it's protected. Because your crown is beautiful exactly as it is. And no one, not your boss, not your colleagues, not society itself, has the right to tell you to take it off. The crown you wear is your heritage, your pride, your power. Wear it boldly. Wear it proudly. And never, ever let anyone convince you to set it aside. If Jasmine's story moved you, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We share powerful stories of courage and justice that need to be heard. Your support helps us amplify voices that change the world.